Pass the Passion is a series where you meet locals who love the Riverland and what they do here. This week, ABC Riverland's Peta Martin spoke with the son of an original soldier settler to the region, John Heward, and asked him what the Monash of his childhood was like.
When I was growing up, it was a very trusting sort of place, and it still is. Like, everybody knew everybody, and it was pretty interesting then. When I walked to school, obviously the blockers in that thing would be pruning or something like that, and they'd make sure that the children walked to school properly. I think that's a thing that's changed greatly now. It's necessary for mothers to take their children to school, but we were allowed to walk to school quite freely.
At the end of your school journey, did you decide to stay in the Riverland?
Well, I started working my father's block because he was sick when I was about 13, and I've worked fruit blocks ever since then.
What was that kind of responsibility like, looking after a fruit block at 13?
The thing was that you got a lot of help from your neighbours because my dad was a bit sick. He was actually blinded in the First World War, and he had cataracts in his eyes. And the neighbours looked after neighbours a lot more then, and I had some great help from my neighbours next door.
Does that mean that your father was one of the first soldier settlers to the region?
Yes, he came up with the original soldier settlers to the region, in 1920.
And whereabouts had he moved from?
At that stage he lived in Mount Eba, or where Prominent Hill Mines were. That's where he left there. Then went to the First World War, where he met his first wife, who was his nurse. She died, and then Dad married Mum later on, sort of thing. My mum wasn't here originally when it happened. Dad had two wives.
So your father had experienced quite a lot of adversity in his lifetime. What was his philosophy on life?
If I've got a passion for trucks, he had a passion for horses, because he was a great man with a love of horses, and if you ever see that in a person that's a horse person, it's something that's pretty unique.
And has that love of horses continued on through you?
Not really. I really haven't done any of that because we never sort of did it, although I did enjoy working the draft horses when I was a child. That was quite interesting.
And then you prefer the modern-day steed, which is a truck. Can you tell me about your passion for restoring old trucks?
Well, probably the first truck I restored was probably my dad's first truck, what he had. It was a 1927A model, and it had laid for 30 years out in the scrub and rusted, and we built that back to quite a unique, good vehicle. And I've actually done Upper Bedford, which was the first truck that I've actually worked with. And I was lucky enough to score Hensel's old Hawker's van the other day in Berry.
Now, how do you learn the skills of restoring trucks? That's almost a lost art because cars are electric today and, all sorts of computers on board.
I think where I actually learnt my skills was that it was necessary to sort of teach yourself mechanical skills to survive as a fruit grower, because there was never enough money to take the vehicles to garages and things like that. You just had to learn it yourself or you didn't survive.
Do you think that it is becoming a lost art, mechanics of these old trucks and cars?
Oh, some people have still got those skills, but it's virtually a hobby thing now. It's far easier to throw a vehicle away now and just get another one. In our days you had to keep the vehicle going.
And what sort of mind frame does it put you in when you're working on a problem on an engine or the body of a really old truck?
Oh, look, it's very relaxing, and you think about it, and actually when you go to bed at night time you forget about your industry problems and things like that. You think about your old vehicles, how you're going to fix them up, and it's a very good mind thing, really.
It's about problem solving. Would you say people in the Riverland are quite good at problem solving?
Certainly most fruit growers and farmers are excellent people at problem solving and working things out, and anybody that's been successful in Riverland has had the skills to think a problem through and fix it up.
You would know about what it's like to use problem solving skills to make business and industry work for you. You've worked in the wine industry, John Heward, for a long time. What's it been like for you lately? Because this is an historically difficult period for wine grape growers.
Look, we had a very good run there, probably 10 years back and that sort of thing. I actually did a few investment things and that sort of thing. That's what's keeping us going now. Certainly industry at the moment is really it's at the bottom of the trough, and surely it's going to pick up pretty soon.
And is it that hope, you think, that keeps people going, people on the land, blockies, graziers and growers? Is it that hope that keeps people surviving?
Look, I was lucky enough to spend a little bit of time in the Mallee in the 50s when things were quite good, and then I saw a drought down there. And way the Mallee farmers hung on and that sort of thing, it's an inspiration to to anybody to realise how much you've just got to believe in yourself and what your product you're going to produce.
Pass the Passion on 1062 ABC Riverland and Mallee. My name's Peta Martin, and today we are talking to John Huard from Monash. Why is it that despite all that adversity you've decided to stay in the Riverland and Monash, John Huard?
Because our weather is so good, we can get in the boat and go and catch a few yabbies if you want to. There's so many, or you can just get in your car and you can drive north of Monash into the scrub, and it's just so unique there that it's incredible, and people don't seem to put a value on this. They'd rather drive up and see Ayers Rock or Arrow Springs or something like that, and really, we've got it in our backyard here.
Is the river a big part of what you love about where we live?
Certainly, the river is a great part of it, like we've actually lucky enough to have a house on the river down at Manham with a vineyard down there, and I've just come back from there today, and it's very relaxing to look, and you see the Explorer go up, with all the people on that are having holidays and that, and you realise just what a great place it is, the river.
And you've been trying to work on some ways to let people know how great our region is. You worked recently on Monash Hidden Secrets. Can you tell me, what was the ethos behind that?
The idea is that I believe that, like in a little town like Monash, if you look at where our children have gone to and that sort of thing, it's very, very, very interesting how they've learnt their skills at a little primary school, and they've gone on to be quite incredible people in the world.
And what is it that drives, do you think, Riverlanders to succeed?
Gee, I think if a person takes on a little business, whether it be a news agency or a fruit block or a farmer, he's got to have a certain amount of dogmatic skills in him that he's going to succeed, and he's going to do it himself along with the help from his family. Perhaps you don't really have to look at the amount of money you make every week. You've got to look at it over a 5-year period or something of that nature.
And the lifestyle, would you say that's a great part of the wealth that we have?
For sure. Like I'm a wine grape grower, but the thing is that if I decide on a Thursday that I want to go down the river yabbying, I can go down the river with probably my son or something like that, and we've got the whole river to ourselves. We own the river for that day. Where other people that have a job, they've got to go on weekends and share it with everybody.
John Huard, who do you nominate as the next person that we're going to meet on Pass the Passion on Riverland today?
I'd very much like to nominate Joy Stokel of Monash. She put in an enormous amount of time with the Girl Guides and the Brownies in Barmera. It's amazing that she'll tell you where those girls have grown up and where they've gone to in the world, and I think a lot of it was just her inspiration and how she taught those children, the skills of camping and being self-sufficient.